Sometimes when I'm in the house, I don't want to leave. Like, I don't want to go out. I'll be like busy doing something stupid. And then whenever I walk out the door, I'm like, oh my God, why was I inside the house? You know, I grew up most of my life in the East Coast mainland. And every day here, weather-wise, is like a day you'd get in the mainland East Coast, like, I don't know, a couple times a year, where you're like, it's so nice you have to go outside. I'm gonna put the phone down here while I walk over this bus stop. Yeah, I just don't like putting the camera in people's faces. The yeah, like those days, you have those nice days where it's like you feel guilty if you didn't go out. That's fucking every day here. It's insane. But yeah, I was looking at the reading Simon talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and what they're going to do there, and they're going to have Warren and Andy perform with them, which makes sense. I mean, I was hoping they would do that. I was afraid at first that I know there's some weirdness with Warren. I don't know what it was. As far as Duran Duran fandom, the things I follow the least and the things I'm least interested in is the interpersonal conflicts, unless they affect the music, like you know, an album release, like in the case of like, you know, Andy leaving because they were doing something with Timberlake and Timberland for Red Carpet Massacre, something like that. But outside of that, I really don't follow what goes on with them in their personal lives. But I know they had some kind of thing. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I got the idea that there was they weren't really in touch with them too much. I know after Duran, he did some porn stuff, which, you know, whatever, you know, it's fine. But I don't really know if that clashes with their image. I don't think it does, but it's just kind of tacky, I guess. Especially like Nick Rhodes, I can't see him being too into that. But the thing with Warren that's funny is if you look at any of the photos from, I guess, almost any time he was in the band, they'd all be dressed up in like their sort of stylish kind of regular gear, and Warren would always either be shirtless or he'd have his shirt open to his waist. It was just funny. He's like the Phil Collins of Duran Duran. Not Phil Collins, Phil Collin, the guitar player for Def Leppard. He's always shirtless and whatever, but when you get up into your 50s, it's kind of like, you know, I don't know. So he always had a kind of a weird vibe with it, so it didn't surprise me that he went into the porn thing. I mean, no, you know what? It did surprise me. It was weird. I mean, I guess what I mean is, out of all the guys, if one of them was going to end up in porn, you know, Warren. Great guitar player. I love his playing, man. Not, you know, I like Andy the same. I don't really have a favorite, I guess, between the two of them. They're both great, but they have such different styles. Warren came in, of course, at a really weird time for the band. He was on, I think he played some guitar on Notorious, but when they started Notorious, Andy was still in the band. And they were trying to get their lawyers to have him remain in it, which, you know, that's never going to end well. So he did play some stuff on it. What did he play on? American Science? And something else? It's online, it's documented somewhere. And I think Warren did some guitar on that album, along with Steve Perone on drums. And when the tour started for Notorious, Warren was in the touring band, of course. Now I see a lot of people say like, oh yeah, he's been in the band since '86. He wasn't. He didn't become an official member until 1989, around the time that the Decade album came out. He was just a touring guitarist. He wasn't in any photos. He was just, you know, the three of them all throughout Notorious and Big Thing. And I think when things started, the bottom started falling out commercially for them, you know, they started doing a lot of weird things. They changed the name of the band to be one word with lowercase d's, something that Limp Bizkit would do as well years later, taking a cue from them, possibly. But, you know, messing with the name, shipping out records without their name on it to try to get some play. They were just confused. And I said before, I think in my Arcadia sort of bathroom rant video, that they kind of, when Notorious happened, they had their own sound before that. You know, it was basically it was Andy Taylor's guitar and the controller's keyboards, Nick Rhodes. The heavy metal guitar and the weirdo 80s synths. That was kind of their sound, like art rock with a more commercial bent to it, glam rock mixed in there. They had a sound, you know, a sound of their own. And it's like when they did Notorious, it's like they just had a complete change up and was like, you know, we're a funk band now, you know, like a, it wasn't, I mean, the whole album wasn't funk, so you can't say it, but they were just trying to be, I don't know, they were trying to project some sort of sophistication. Simon at the time, in an interview that you can see on the 3 to Get Ready film, which is really a great watch if you haven't seen it. I think it's free on YouTube, 3 to Get Ready. It's a documentary that follows the time around the Notorious album. He mentions that after Live Aid and apartheid, you know, the apartheid for Africa thing, and the Do They Know It's Christmas and all that stuff, he said that they would feel weird going back to making like hedonistic kind of good time music, and he thought they had to sort of grow up and be more serious. And I think he was saying that about just pop music in general. So I mean that had part to do with why they changed things up. It's too bad, you know. I don't think that they were trying to, I don't know what they were trying to do actually. Be more sophisticated, be more adult, be less hedonistic. For a band that, you know, embraced that whole good time sort of 80s vibe for the first half of the decade, to reject it in the second half, it just seemed weird. The glam metal bands of the Sunset Strip, they picked that up and ran with it. And subsequently, that became the popular kind of music, not because of that, but it's just, you know, that's what happened there. They embody that now. And a lot of pop acts who used to make more like good time type stuff, I mean, you know, you look at the big pop bands that were big in the early 80s, and, you know, the Police, Sting, and even newer bands like, you know, Culture Club, they were like writing war songs. And then Sting was like hiring a jazz band. It was like everyone was trying to, I guess, grow up and talk more about more serious things. That's a recipe for disaster, I think, in rock and roll. I mean, that doesn't sound, no fun is never a good policy. You know, we saw that with the Seattle people. That's why that music is fucking terrible. But yeah, so they want to change up their image and their style, and along with it was their music. Even the songs that aren't straight funk, I don't even know what you'd call it, more like adult oriented pop. Well, not really, I don't know, I can't figure what the sound, more sophisticated, slicker, less puerile, I guess, juvenile, which is too bad. So they tried to do the three-man thing, you know, and I think by 1989, when they saw their fortunes reverse in comparison to the first half of the decade, they were just trying a lot of stuff. And the thinking was, at one point, from maybe within the organization, is that we need 5 bodies here. We need 5 guys. Also around that time, New Kids on the Block were blowing up. And oddly, Duran was kind of being positioned as like competition or the aging out boy bands. And I remember at the time when they did it, the few interviews they did around then, and one in particular in the Pulse magazine, the Tower Records magazine, you know, there's a lot of questions about, well, you know, New Kids on the Block, what do you think about them? And like implying that they were kind of stealing their thunder or something. And Simon's like, no, you know, they call themselves New Kids on the Block, but, you know, what are they going to be in 2 years? So he wasn't really like taking shots at them, but he was engaging in this weird sort of rivalry they were trying to create. And they had already spent the previous few years trying to shed that teeny kind of audience. So they were all over the place. They didn't know what to do. So at one point, it was decided we need 5 guys up here. Warren had been with them touring since, you know, the Notorious tour. He did the Big Thing tour. And Sterling Campbell had replaced Steve Perrone in the touring group, and he did the entire Big Thing tour with them. In 1989, they released the Decade Greatest Hits, which was a great collection, just because the material was really good. It was just basic. It was all the hits, but it did really well. It sold really well, and it reminded people what a great band they were. Tellingly, though, only 4 of the tracks come from after 1985, with the bulk of the collection being from the first half of the 80s. So I think the 5-man lineup of the band came out of that. They were just trying to do something that would sort of get them back somewhere, you know? So by trying to change their image and sound, they kind of lost both in their audience as well. So the late 80s and going into the 90s was just a recovery period. And the nadir of this recovery period would be 1990s Liberty. I could talk about Liberty for like an hour, so we're not going to get too into that. But yeah, that was just a microcosm of what was going on in the band as a whole. You know, they were just confused. There's a lot of confusion. But when Warren became a full member and he started introducing some of his songs, his song ideas, I'm pretty sure Ordinary World was his, as was most of Come Undone. So he really saved their asses. Come on, Done. Ordinary World was ready to be recorded around the time of Liberty, but they just decided to hold it off for down the road for whatever reason, which was a good idea because, I mean, it just wasn't, they could have came out with anything in 1990 and they would have had the same result. You know, it just wasn't the right time. So it's kind of good that they waited and held on that one. But yeah, that was a tough period for them. But when Warren got to assert himself in the group, he really helped out a lot. He saved them. I really think he did. He, I don't know how, if he helped in the directional sense, because to me it seems like they still didn't have a direction and never nailed one down until Astronaut, until they had the reunion. I mean, they were going in all different directions. As much as I like those albums, the Wedding album and in Medazzaland, they were still kind of different things. It was like sounds they hadn't used before, which is good because you want to do that as you progress as a band. But they had still not re-embraced their original sound, or or the major components of their original sound. Yeah, it was real confusing. So I'm glad Warren's going in with them. And Simon was talking about possible songs they'd be doing. I guess from what I understand, it's going to be 5 songs, 2 with Warren, Come Undone, probably, Ordinary World, 2 with Andy. If I had to guess, I would say Hungry Like the Wolf and Save a Prayer. And then they're going to do 1 with both guys, which unfortunately I think it's probably going to be I'm not going to jinx it by saying what I think it's going to be, but I think it would be more likely that it would be a song, like a cover type of thing. I mean, I hope not, but I don't know. I just get that feeling a song with both of them playing on it would be something like that, as they're doing 2 from each era. That's just all my speculation. And I'm right about 40% of the time when it comes to these kind of things. We get it, you're a fire truck. Oh, don't blame the teacher, blame the school.